Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are discussing a crisis that has moved from warning headlines into lived reality, a moment many experts feared but hoped would never fully arrive. Tehran's Water Day Zero is no longer a projection or a distant scenario. It is unfolding now, forcing mass evacuations and reshaping daily life for millions of people. This video explains what Day Zero really means, how Tehran reached this point, and why the consequences stretch far beyond one city or one country. Water Day Zero is the term used when a city's water supply can no longer meet basic demand. Taps stop running for most households, reservoirs fall below usable levels, and emergency systems replace normal distribution. In Tehran, this moment did not happen overnight. It is the result of years of stress, mismanagement, environmental change, and population pressure that finally collided at the same time. Tehran is one of the largest cities in the Middle East, with a population that swells beyond its official numbers every day. Millions rely on a complex network of dams, reservoirs, underground aquifers, and transfer systems from surrounding regions. For decades, this system was stretched thinner and thinner, even as demand continued to rise. One of the biggest drivers of Tehran's water crisis is prolonged drought. Rainfall levels across much of Iran have been declining for years. Snowpack in the mountains, which traditionally feeds rivers and reservoirs during warmer months, has shrunk dramatically. Less snow means less slow release water and more pressure on already depleted storage. Climate change has intensified this pattern. Higher temperatures increase evaporation from reservoirs and soil. Water that once lasted through the year now disappears much faster. Heat waves also increase consumption, as households, agriculture, and industry all demand more water at the same time. Another critical factor is groundwater depletion. For years, wells were drilled deeper and deeper to compensate for surface water shortages. Aquifers that took centuries to fill were drained in a matter of decades. As groundwater levels fell, land subsidence began to occur, damaging infrastructure and reducing the natural capacity of the ground to store water in the future. Urban growth made the situation worse. Tehran expanded rapidly, often without aligning development with water availability. New neighborhoods, industries, and roads were built, each adding to demand. Water efficiency and conservation measures lagged behind this growth, creating a widening gap between supply and need. Agriculture around Tehran also played a major role. Intensive crops continued to be grown in regions already facing scarcity. Traditional irrigation methods wasted large amounts of water through evaporation and leakage. While cities tightened usage, agricultural demand remained difficult to control. For years, officials issued warnings. Reservoir levels were reported as critically low. Emergency restrictions were introduced, then relaxed, then reintroduced. Public awareness campaigns urged conservation, but behavior change alone could not compensate for structural shortages of this magnitude. Day Zero arrived when the remaining reserves fell below the level needed to maintain pressure in the system. At that point, water distribution becomes unstable. Some areas receive intermittent flow, while others receive none at all. Pumps fail, pipes suck in air, and contamination risks increase. When this happens in a city as large as Tehran, the consequences are immediate and severe. Hospitals, food supply chains, sanitation systems, and power generation all depend on water. Without it, basic services cannot function safely. Authorities began implementing emergency measures. Water was prioritized for hospitals, emergency services, and critical infrastructure. Tanker trucks were deployed to supply neighborhoods. but the scale of demand quickly overwhelmed these efforts. Long lines formed, tensions rose, and distribution became uneven. As conditions worsened, evacuation plans were activated. Mass evacuations are not a first response to water shortages, but when sanitation collapses and public health risks rise, moving people becomes the only option. Families were urged to relocate temporarily to areas with more stable water access. Evacuations on this scale are complex and disruptive. People leave homes, jobs, schools, and communities behind, often with little notice. Transportation networks become congested. Host cities face sudden pressure on their own resources, including water, housing, and health care. The psychological impact is immense. Water is not just a resource, it is a foundation of daily life. When it disappears, fear and uncertainty spread quickly. Trust in institutions is tested, and social tensions can escalate under stress. Public health concerns multiply rapidly. Without reliable water, hygiene becomes difficult. The risk of waterborne diseases increases as people turn to unsafe sources. Waste management systems struggle, leading to contamination and further health threats. Economic activity slows dramatically. Businesses that rely on water shut down, construction stops, manufacturing halts, tourism collapses. The financial cost of a day zero event extends far beyond emergency response and continues long after the immediate crisis passes. Tehran's crisis also exposes regional and geopolitical dimensions of water scarcity. Iran shares river basins and water sources with neighboring countries. As resources shrink, competition intensifies. Decisions made in one region can affect availability in another, increasing the risk of conflict. This situation raises difficult questions about long-term sustainability. Emergency measures can buy time, but they cannot replace water that no longer exists. Desalination, water transfers, and recycling projects take years to build and require massive investment. Some solutions were discussed long before day zero. Improving irrigation efficiency, shifting crop patterns, reducing leaks in urban networks, and protecting aquifers were all known strategies. The challenge was implementing them fast enough and at the necessary scale. Tehran's experience serves as a warning for other megacities around the world. Many urban centers rely on fragile water systems under increasing climate pressure. Population growth, environmental degradation, and delayed planning create conditions where day zero becomes possible. Cities in arid and semi-arid regions are especially vulnerable. When rainfall becomes unpredictable and storage systems are inadequate, even a few dry years can trigger cascading failures. What happened in Tehran could happen elsewhere if lessons are not learned. Public response to the crisis has been mixed. Some communities organized local distribution and support networks. Others experienced protests and frustration. In moments like this, social cohesion becomes as important as physical infrastructure. The role of communication is critical. Clear, transparent information can reduce panic and help people make informed decisions. Conflicting messages or delayed updates, on the other hand, can worsen confusion and mistrust. Technology may play a role in recovery. Smart water management systems, real-time monitoring, and data-driven allocation can improve efficiency. However, technology cannot create water where none exists. It can only help use what remains more wisely. Environmental restoration is another long-term challenge. Recharging aquifers, restoring wetlands, and protecting watersheds require coordinated effort and political will. These measures take time but are essential for rebuilding resilience. The human stories behind the crisis are often lost in statistics. Families packing belongings, children leaving schools, elderly residents struggling to relocate, and workers losing income all reflect the real cost of water failure. These experiences shape how societies remember and respond to such events. Tehran's water day zero may not be permanent, but its effects will last for years. Even if rains return and reservoirs recover partially, the trust lost and damage done cannot be erased overnight. Recovery will require more than infrastructure. It will require policy change and cultural shifts. Water conservation will likely become a permanent part of life, not a temporary emergency measure. Pricing, regulation, and usage norms may change significantly. These shifts can be controversial, but may be unavoidable in a water-scarce future. International attention is now focused on Tehran as a case study. Researchers, planners, and policymakers are analyzing what went wrong and what could still be done. The goal is not only to help Tehran recover, but to prevent similar crises elsewhere. This moment also highlights inequality. Those with resources can relocate or secure private water supplies more easily than those without. Any recovery plan must address these disparities to avoid deepening social divides. The crisis challenges traditional ideas of urban growth. Cities can no longer expand endlessly without considering natural limits. Water availability must become a central factor in planning, not an afterthought. Education and public engagement will be key moving forward. When people understand where water comes from and how fragile systems can be, they are more likely to support conservation and reform. Tehran's Day Zero is a stark reminder that water security is national security. Without it, economies falter, health declines, and stability erodes. Managing water is no longer just an environmental issue, it is a core survival issue. As evacuations continue and emergency measures evolve, the situation remains fluid. The coming months will determine whether Tehran can stabilize its water system or whether deeper, more prolonged disruption lies ahead. What is certain is that the era of ignoring water limits is ending. Tehran has crossed a threshold that many cities fear. The lessons learned here will shape how governments and societies approach water management in an increasingly uncertain climate. This crisis forces a difficult but necessary conversation about priorities, planning, and responsibility. Water scarcity is not a distant future problem. It is a present reality. Tehran's experience shows how quickly conditions can change when warning signs are not fully addressed. As we follow developments, it is important to look beyond the headlines and understand the deeper causes and consequences. Only by doing so can meaningful solutions emerge, not just for Tehran, but for cities around the world facing the same silent threat. Thank you for watching, and stay with us as we continue to break down complex global issues in a clear and honest way.